Hello everybody, and welcome to the Discover DDay exhibition here today at Melton Mowbray 1940s weekend here in sunny Leicestershire. The weather's smiling on us today, which is really good. Totally different to how it was on D-Day with all the storms and everything that the troops faced. So I'll take you through a brief look at the things that we have on our display. We're an educational project, we're not really a reenactment group. So we provide education to museums, events like this. We do schools and colleges and different things like that. We talk about the history of the US Airborne and the US Army as well. And we cover all aspects. So we cover signals, we cover engineering, we cover all the different things. And you'll see as we go through the display what we have on show today. Okay, so we talk about all the different things, the Mulberry Harbours, which we'll talk about later on, bringing things ashore that the troops needed. So things like rations and fuel. So we've got fuel, gasoline here, lots of jerry cans. Lots of various different types of equipment. Nothing will be quite in order, I'm afraid, but I'll take you through the best I can. So we have a holophane light here. This was used by the paratroopers on D-Day. They were to light up the field so that the gliders and the Dakotas that came in to drop the paratroopers could see where the fields were. They also had large bright coloured orange panels as well that went in the fields to designate where the wind was blowing and which direction that the planes needed to come in from. But these are quite interesting that the prismatic lens on here, the holophane lens, shines light onto the ground and creates nice little rings as well as straight up. So it's very, very easy to see from the air, and then it lights up the ground in a nice way. We've also got different types of signal lights. So obviously you're familiar with Morse code used on radio, but these are using Morse code with a light. So we have a British version here, and then we do the comparison with the American version here. The American version is a little bit more different. You can use it more like a gun. So you can fire into different areas where you want to go with your Morse code to different platoons. It's a very, very narrow beam that they have on this. So you either have a trigger on the side here, or you can use this little remote in here if you needed to be slightly away from the signal light. We then start coming into the engineering section. So we have lots of different types of explosives. We've got the famous torpedoes, the Bangalore torpedoes that were used by the US Army to clear a lot of minefields and barbed wire obstructions on D-Day. We also have pole charges. So the pole charges could be used to push through the apertures of bunkers, or they could be leant up against the door of the bunker to blow the back door in. Okay. We then have different types of mines. Our mines come from different places. We get a lot of them from collectors and people like that. We also have some lovely mines that we get from people like Militaria, who support us quite well on these projects. We have different types of fuse wire. We have different types of explosives. We have the satchel charges, the famous satchel charges that the troops like to use. We have some German mines as well. So we have the shoebox mines. So these are the wooden mines that they couldn't detect with the metal detectors. Obviously the big ones that were solid metal, they were quite easy to detect. These ones were not so easy at all. We have different types of explosives. So as I mentioned before, it's an educational project. So we like to tell people about the different types of explosives, the different types of rates that they burnt so that they were used for different jobs, how to put different types of explosives together with different types of igniters, different types of timed fuse wire, and educate people in that way. Okay, so lots of interesting things on here. I won't go into too much detail, but you can see by the video we've got some quite interesting and sort of specialist bits here. We've got some concrete mines at the front, some nice examples of those. They were used in Normandy a lot. Obviously the Germans building the Atlantic Wall had a lot of concrete left at the end of the day, so they used to put the concrete into moulds, add bits of stone, add bits of metal into the mix as well to create shrapnel for shrapnel mines. And there's a nice square one there which is quite rare, and the circular ones which are quite well used. Caltrops as well, which were used originally by the Roman armies to maim horses and things like that. These were adapted and used during the Second World War by SOE, used by the French resistance as well, to lay on the road so that whenever a car came over it would puncture the car, the Germans would get out and they would be able to form an ambush. We then have different types of grenades as well, ranging from the German stick grenades, the egg grenades. We then go to the American grenades, the pineapple grenades. We have different types of fuses to explain to people how they could be adapted to use the grenade as a different type of explosive device for various different jobs. So we then have our lovely map that we have here. This explains the different beaches, and we try to get people a good idea of the geography of D-Day as well. It's very important to know where things happened and why they happened in those areas. Okay, so the paratroopers obviously protecting the flanks of the beaches. Why it was, everybody seems to think that the Americans, the beaches were smaller and they had an easier time to come up, and that the British had a more difficult time. But if you look at it, the American beaches, they were more difficult. There was more marshes involved. There was just a lot more different things that they had to adapt to during D-Day, that the British were quite easy to get off the beach where they went, but not so easy for the Americans. Okay. We then have these 3 dioramas. These are very popular. These show 3 different sites in Normandy. So we have our Omaha Beach diorama, we have our Point de Hope diorama, and we have our Lafayette Bridge diorama. And those of you that are familiar with those areas will know the stories behind those. But if you want to know the stories, either Google them or drop us a line at Discover DDay and we'll talk you through what happened. We've got some displays at the back here. So we talk about signals, so signal communications with radios, that kind of thing, the unreliability that they had with the equipment, a lot of the valves and things like that we show to people that they don't know how they were used. But that's the radio equipment. We then look across here and we have services of supply. So the people, almost the unforgotten people behind the lines, who are basically providing all the bits and pieces that the troops needed, from rations to ammunition, paper clips, documents, everything they could possibly want. That was all provided by the services of supply. So we have a nice little section there for that. We have a little display at the end which has lots of little tiny bits and pieces. Again, it's difficult to take you through what we have, but if you want a spare pair of clean socks or something like that, we've got those. Lots of various different things on that display. We then come to a little relic section that we have here. So we have an original life belt that was given to me by a veteran that was used on D-Day, and we have an unissued one, so I can normally show people how that works. We have parts of the Mulberry Harbour. Now, next year we're hoping to do more of a diorama and a project on the Mulberry Harbours. One of the very important reasons that we managed to win, come through on D-Day, was because of the Mulberry Harbours and the things that were provided to the troops. There was no point the troops going into the D-Day landing beaches and then running out of rations or running out of ammunition. You know, after 3 or 4 days, that would have been it. They would have just literally floundered on the beach. So the Mulberry Harbours were there. They backed up the troops with all that equipment, and the stats are phenomenal on the Mulberry Harbours. So that's something to look forward to. That'll be coming up fairly soon. Okay. Some relics that were found in Normandy in ditches that were obviously dropped by the troops, so we have those on display here as well. We have all the different collar badges as well, so people who served with the US Army were given different jobs, had a collar badge that would show what that job was, so we've got that to explain to people how all that worked, and obviously the paratrooper awards that go with that. Obviously we talked about communications before with the radios, but with the radios not being that reliable and not working very well, we talk about things like carrier pigeons. We've got a nice collection here with Percy and Paul, our carrier pigeons, and inside the top here we've got a nice little message book, and then we have 4 of the carriers that went onto the pigeons' legs with the messages inside. So it's a nice little display to talk to people about there. Then we have a few little other items, and then we go through to the weapons display. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with all the weapons, but Chris here, he talks about all the 50 caliber machine guns, the 30 caliber machine guns, obviously the Bazooka, which again is provided by our friends at Epic Militaria, Garand rifles, Springfields, we have grease guns, the Thompson submachine guns, Carbines, and then we have all the different types of ammunition as well. So we explain to people the bullet is not just a bullet, you know, it's designed to do different things. Some of them had incendiary devices, tracers, armour piercing as well, with a piece of titanium inside them. So we just talk to people about the technology that goes behind all these different bits and pieces. So the educational project here from Discover DDay. Hope you enjoyed this video. Take care.